Hi, and welcome to the tutorial dedicated to various muting and scratching rhythm techniques. Each of the following videos is dedicated to one technique, and we will cover palm muting, funk rhythm, funk skunk rhythm, ska style scratching, natural harmonics, and racking single note techniques. There are various reasons on why we would want to use different muting techniques on guitar. Number one reason is that their usage often depends on the style of music we are playing or composing. You can find palm muting, for example, in distortion-driven, more heavier songs, and you can find 16-note strumming in more funk-oriented songs. It's important to say that if you know all the techniques used here, you increase your potential for your own compositions. So if you want to make it sound more meaner, you can insert some palm muting. If you want more character on your single notes, you can use racking technique or funk skunk technique. Second important reason why you should use muting techniques is the song arrangement. Usually in a song, we will use more quiet playing for the verses and get in high gear during choruses. When on verse, it's often better to use muting or scratching, so you keep your guitar there in the mix, but you leave space for other instruments and vocals to be heard. I advise you that you practice all these techniques thoroughly within your own riffs and rhythmic patterns in order to really master them all. Until then, have fun with the 4 power chord progression we have in this lesson. First technique that we will cover is palm muting. And the palm muting is the type of muting that is done with the picking hand, with this part of the hand, the side part of the palm. With this part of the palm, you're going to gently press the strings towards the bridge to create that muting sound. The normal sound will be like this, and with the palm muting applied. So of course, when you do that, and in the same time when you pick, you can create various patterns based on that principle. So you can play 8 notes, you can play some triplets as well. So it just depends on what type of rhythmical pattern you choose, but the principle is always the same. With this part of the palm, gently apply pressure, you gently make contact with the strings and create that muting sound. The funk rhythm is based on 16 notes, so we will strum with our strumming hand in 16 note pattern. So and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. In funk music, it's important never to lose that up and down motion, so you never skip any of the moves. Even if you don't play it and don't hear that scratching sound, you always keep the hand gently moving in that up and down 16 note rhythm. This will make you sure that you won't get lost in the rhythm. Funk rhythm technique, it's important to keep your hand, the strumming hand, very relaxed, so the wrist is completely relaxed and has that relaxed motion, down, up, down, up. The only force that is needed is to actually keep the pick in your hand. So as always, start with the metronome and get familiar yourself with that 16 note pattern. You can create a very straight feel with that. you can create slightly shuffle feel. Depending what you need in your composition. Here comes the funk skunk technique, and I'm not sure why it is called skunk technique, but possibly has something to do with the ska style of music, but not sure. Anyway, this technique is very similar to the funk technique. It also involves strumming the 16 notes with your strumming hand, but in the same time it involves some muting with the fretting hand as well. What kind of muting? Well, you need to play only one note as opposed to the whole chord. So if you play one note and strum all the strings, all the remaining strings except that note should be muted. So how to actually practice that muting? Well, sit down and choose a scale. For example, we are now in the F sharp minor pentatonic scale, and try to mute each note out of that scale. So, the point is to actually mute all the strings while keeping one note ringing. With the strumming hand, you can also focus the strum on only the treble strings, for example, or the top 4 strings, to minimize the risk of playing some harmonics on the bass strings. Now, of course, if you don't have the harmonics, and if you need to really put some character into those single notes, instead of playing it like this, you can bang all the strings hard and create that feel. Okay, let's talk a bit about the ska style scratching. And this kind of scratching is something that is usually used in all kinds of styles, pop styles, rock styles, reggae styles, and it involves both muting with your strumming hand and your fretting hand. Now let's fret the F sharp minor chord, but only the top 4 strings. See this technique as some kind of a blend between palm muting and funk rhythm, except we're playing. So why am I choosing to do this palm mute? Well, it minimizes the risk of natural harmonics popping up, and I really need those scratching tones clean and without any tones at all on the strings. So what I'm doing here is basically doing it down and up with the palm muting, and in the same time the fretting hand is keeping the light touch on the strings, preventing them from ringing. The next downstroke and upstroke are the F sharp minor chord fretted, so, and another down and up with the palm mute and fretting, and in the end a short strum of that same chord. So course, you can create various rhythmic patterns based on these techniques. Next technique that we will cover is natural harmonic muting. And basically what we're doing here is creating natural harmonics, generating them on the strings when muting with our fretting hand to create notes on purpose octave or 2 octaves higher. So in our example, if you are playing you can find many of these harmonics on the neck, and here's the E note, here's A, and here's B. So why not use that instead of chords? It can sound cool as a fill or something in a song that goes over the main rhythm guitar. Now this technique is great if you really need to keep those notes ringing instead of just a clean scratchy sound. But you need to play it more quieter and create a different feel within a song. Suppose you want to do it in an intro or some break where the singer is singing and you don't want some heavy riffage on it, so you can use this technique. As far as the strumming hand goes, when you play those natural harmonics, make sure that you mute all the other strings as well, but focus on that single note. This is my advice, because if you focus on all the notes, and you will unintentionally create some harmonic on a different string, so those two can clash and you can have some additional noise. So instead of this, focus only on the A string to create that specific note. The last technique that we will cover is racking single note fills. Now there are many ways that you can use this technique, but it's great to use it as a fill-in guitar track over the main rhythm track, and it goes like this. Now the racking technique is being performed with the fretting hand and also with the picking hand. So what I'm doing here is I'm muting, lightly touching all the strings, going over them with my strumming hand, and then just picking one note, the top note, and here we have the top note on the high E string. Now this will accent that particular note, so instead of sounding like this, we can do it like this. So what I'm doing here with my strumming hand is that I'm also doing a palm mute style here on the bass strings to prevent them from ringing at all, and also while racking I'm doing that palm mute on the lower strings as well, on the treble strings. So using two muting techniques with both my strumming hand and my fretting hand, I'm really minimizing the risk of creating those natural harmonics and creating a more clear sound for recording. So